Hello, everyone. This is the Armchair Warlord with my co-host Katala Lars, and we are doing another Armchair War stream. So,
Hello, everybody.
and pardon the echo.
It does happen from time to time.
Well, the problem is that YouTube doesn't let you mute videos when they're in. Doesn't let you mute something before it goes live.
I have noticed that, yes.
Yeah. So I'm doing something like watching the chat in another stream. It will just start playing the video. So we also have our waifu title card this time is Mosin Nagant-chan with her horse. Which is apropos for this stream subject.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, well, so yeah, it's been a week or so since we did our last one. It's been a little while. I think actually so far some of the predictions I made in our inaugural stream are paying off, considering that considering the latest word on the street is that they're thinking the Russians are going to invade on Wednesday, and that's the day of the full moon, which lined up exactly with our prediction on stream 1.
Yeah, well, that was the suggestion, because then they'd have, they could fight at night, but they'd also have plenty of light for it.
Yeah. And because the Russians don't have very good night vision devices, they're going to want to fight kick off when there's a lot of illumination.
I mean, being able to see does help with that sort of thing.
Oh my god, it helps. It helps so much. And the difference between a full moon and no moon is astonishing. when you get out there.
Yeah. It's not like out in the city where you can kind of muddle around thanks to streetlights and not.
Yeah, this. I mean, I'm not sure I'm sure our viewers here are a little bit more conservative and rural, probably. But for those of you who might have grown up in the city, walking around with no moonlight, or when it's outside in the dark with clouds up or with no moonlight, is night and day from what the experience is from walking around with a full moon.
Yeah, well, and it's a bad idea. You're very, very likely to smack your face into something.
Yeah, you're gonna fall into things. You're going to get lost. If it's cloudy, you'll get disoriented very quickly.
You'll have a bad time.
Yeah, and actually, particularly if there's snow on the ground in a full moon, I mean, it might as well be. It's not daylight, but it's bright out. And in the Ukraine right now, there's snow on the ground, so there's a white reflective layer on the ground and a moon up, and that's ideal conditions as far as seeing things at night. It can actually get pretty bright. Now, what I don't know is what the weather is like in Ukraine for the next couple of days. Actually, let's check that out. Let's do some intel work here and see what the weather's going to look like. Let's see. According to DuckDuckGo, that's interesting. So, almost looking at the. Oh, this is interesting. So, it's clear today. It's going to start clouding over tomorrow, and apparently, it's going to be. Well, this thing is going to be pretty cloudy at night for basically the next week. Which, if I was in charge of the Russians, I would almost want to go sooner rather than later based on this. But maybe we can get something better than what DuckDuckGo is telling us.
No, if you actually feel like switching to Google.
Yeah. Does Google even have good weather forecasting?
Not that I am aware. People use it all the time, but I don't know how good it actually is.
Gotcha. Let me see. BBC weather. Here we go. The British Broadcasting Corporation. Maybe they can give us something. Let's see.
Well, it looks like most of the weather places are saying it's going to be mostly sunny on Tuesday, cloudy on Wednesday.
Yeah, probably kind of actually heavy rain on Thursday, and weather improving through the next week. So honestly, the whole moonlight argument, unless they're talking about flying aircraft, maybe wouldn't even come into it if it's cloudy out because the moon is over the clouds. So
Yeah.
the Russians would just have to deal with fighting in the dark.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time they'd done something like that, but I'm sure they'd like to avoid it if they can.
Yeah, they would probably want better weather.
Yeah.
And also, it's going to warm up a little bit later on. So, particularly, it's going to start raining apparently on Thursday.
Well, it's either going to be freezing rain or it's going to turn that snow into a sloppy mess.
Yeah, so it's great weather for a war. God, you figure they could have just waited until the damn summer to kick this off.
One would think, but well,
Like
that's not how we do.
Like this weather. This is hypothermia weather. This is how you get hypothermia.
This is how you die.
Yeah, like you just get soaked, and it's like 30. Like the worst weather for hypothermia isn't like 10 below zero. It's 35 degrees and pissing rain.
Yeah, well, and you will never like. I've been outside in weather like that because of how I grew up. Even when you come back in and you sit in front of a warm fire, you will feel for the next 3 or 4 hours like you will never be dry again.
Yeah, which,
and
this
they're not going to have that out in the field.
Yeah, which this almost makes me wonder if some of the news that's coming out might make sense with the fact there's expected to be a major rainstorm on Thursday, because there's been news coming out recently where the Russians came out a couple of hours ago saying the window for diplomacy is not closed. We can keep talking. I think I've got some news stories pulled up for that. Let's see. The Kremlin signaled on Monday that it is ready to keep talking with the West about security grievances that led to the current crisis, offering hope that Russia might not invade Ukraine within days, as Western officials increasingly fear. Probably because they don't want to have to attack in pissing freezing rain on Thursday.
Yeah, they're not going to want to do that.
Yeah, they could. The thing is that they can string this out until they get better conditions, right? So, in appearance orchestrated for TV cameras, apparently, long-time Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov argued possibility for talks had not been exhausted. So this is interesting, and honestly, I very much wonder if this is related to the fact there's going to be that conditions really until. I mean, yeah, it's looking like it's going to be kind of rainy and cloudy for until next week. So I'm almost wondering if they're planning on.
Looks like it's going to be not exactly friendly for.
Oh yeah, God! Tuesday it's supposed to sleet. Yeah, it's honestly looking like it's going to get colder next week. So they might have actually pushed the operation to get better weather. So I would much rather fight in snow and ice around 20 degrees than I would want to fight in pissing rain around 35.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. This might actually explain why we're still going around diplomacy. Also, so on the other hand, today actually we announced here in the United States we would close our embassy in Ukraine and move all remaining staffers to Lvov, which is much further west, close to the Polish border. Actually, historically, it's part of Poland. As invasion fears intensify here, and actually, they're not just closing the embassy; they're destroying documents, which means they're not even leaving a skeleton crew behind to secure the place. They're abandoning it. This is, I mean, the contrast. Something I find remarkable here is the contrast between the imminent war messaging coming out of the West and what the Russians and Ukrainians seem to be signaling is
It's pretty incredible.
yeah. No, I mean, I mean, for all we know, the Russians are playing for better weather, and the Ukrainians don't want to start a panic. But I mean, well, and actually, I'll get into a little while later on. I'll get into why the things that I would expect the Ukrainians to be doing that I haven't seen them doing yet. I haven't heard them doing yet. If there was going to be an invasion in the near future, but yeah, this is like some what was that freaking movie about Benghazi? 25 hours or something, 13 hours.
I want to say 13 hours. I can't remember the exact name of the movie. It was.
Yeah, it's that Michael Bay movie about Benghazi, which I never watched. Yeah, they're shredding documents right now in the embassy in Kiev. Kind of remarkable.
Which I kind of find it funny. A lot of people who are actually in the military, I know, have seen that movie and they said it was really good. Apparently, Michael Bay has a very strange love affair with the military.
Yeah, I have heard it was good.
Apparently, he consulted with people who were actually there, and they told him if he screwed it up, he'd be in trouble.
Yeah. Well,
although it is Michael Bay, I'm not sure they had any reason to worry. If there's anything he cares about making accurate, it's his military films.
I mean, at least as accurate as the Pentagon lets him make them.
Well, yeah.
I've seen a few things in those Transformers movies, which That
was the Transformers movies. He didn't care. We all know he did not care.
That time the U.S. military just invaded Egypt.
That was ridiculous. That wasn't the only ridiculous thing in those movies, but that one was genuinely dumb.
That was. Apparently, the story of how that particular sequence got shot is kind of interesting because like they actually had like tanks doing live fire into the village they built for that. Apparently, Michael Bay actually wanted the Air Force to bomb it, and they wouldn't let him do it.
What I'm really keen to know is how he got them to let him put tattoos on an F-22.
Well, actually, there's a story behind that, which is he actually had to convince the Pentagon, like, no, we want Starscream to be an F-22, and they're like, but he's a bad guy, and he's like, yeah, but it's the baddest aircraft out there, so he'd want to be that.
Well, that was actually the reasoning in G1. He picked the most powerful thing he could find on Earth at the time.
Yeah.
And that was the F-15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
because
up completely.
It's Starscream, and everyone knows he knew that. Regardless, we're in the weeds talking about Transformers when we're supposed to be talking about Russia.
We're supposed to be talking about World War III. They're going to like remember us as the generation who were like just making memes while the nukes were flying.
Jeez, they probably will because some of us just can't take anything seriously.
Yeah, we're just like, look, we're T+2 years into the pandemic at this point, and nobody gives a damn anymore.
It's because the pandemic was just a scam to begin with.
Yeah,
COVID was their excuse.
Like there just shouldn't have been a pandemic. It's like, okay, yep, we have a respiratory disease going around.
We have a respiratory going around. Respond accordingly. Yes. And go on with your lives.
Wash your hands, folks.
Right.
Yeah, so let's see. This also happened yesterday. Was apparently airline insurers. I'm not sure how. I'm not unlike most people on Twitter. I'm not an expert on the intricacies of airline insurance, but apparently a lot of insurers for airlines were telling people they were insuring they need to stay the hell out of Ukraine.
Oh yeah, didn't they drop insurance for most commercial flights in and out of Ukraine at this point?
Yeah, so like commercial air travel in Ukraine just basically stopped like today. apparently Ukraine has put up some money to cover insurance, but I'm not sure if people are going to take that because nobody. Well, I'll tell you why. Probably most airlines are not remotely interested in taking that. This was Malaysia Airlines Flight 17, and during the initial crisis in the Donbass, this was shot down over Ukraine. Back during a period when. Go ahead.
I was going to say that does make sense why they'd stop insuring them.
Yeah, well, it was back during a period when airlines were didn't really know what a modern armed conflict looked like, and they just thought, well, we'll just keep on flying at 35,000 feet, and it's not a big deal. And so the Malaysia Airlines, flying from east, where were they going? Flying from Kuala Lumpur to Amsterdam. Well, that took them over eastern Ukraine and took them over a bunch of air defense systems, which can blow things out of the sky that are flying twice as high as that, manned by people with itchy trigger fingers. And it got misidentified as a Ukrainian aircraft and shot down.
Yeah, they just basically wanted to shoot whatever was flying.
Yeah, there were some, Russian, as near as I can tell, Russian anti-aircraft gunners who wanted blood that day, and they got it.
Just not exactly the blood they were looking for.
Yeah, they killed 300 civilians. This isn't the first time this has happened, but it is the first time it's happened in a while. Probably first time it's significantly happened since the 1980s. Yeah, and it's really kind of remarkable how prior to this, commercial carriers would just fly over war zones where there were anti-aircraft missiles active and just expect nothing to happen.
Well, it is really interesting that up until that point, most of the time, nothing did happen.
Yeah, well, a lot of the time, nothing happened, but there have been enough accidental shoot downs. You'd think they'd be more careful.
One would think, right?
Let's see. I mean, there had been a few ones previously, but the big one previous to that, I would think would have been Iran Air 655, which was shot down over. That was actually shot down about the USS Vincennes during when we were beating on the Iranians for shooting missiles at our ships. The crew on the Vincennes thought that thing was due to a series of pretty significant errors, thought that thing was a Iranian F-4 that was about to try to bomb them, and they shot it down.
Which is a bit strange because it looks nothing like that.
Well, I mean, it looks nothing like that, but they were looking at a radar scan, so.
Fair point. Radar scans aren't always exactly accurate.
Yeah, they were like looking at a radar scan while they were simultaneously shooting like in a gunfight with Iranian gunboats. It was a real shit show.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's probably why we are not seeing why the air track over Ukraine looks like this right now. What I have heard is there are a lot of wealthy Ukrainians, oligarchs, and so on, getting into their private jets and flying to Western Europe as fast as they can. Which I don't blame them at this point.
I really don't either.
Yeah. Although you figure if you're a patriotic citizen of a country, you should probably stay and help defend it. But.
Well, I mean, it is wealthy oligarchs. They are the main culprits behind screwing up the country to begin with. So
yeah, they're. I mean, Honestly, they should be first in line to fight the Russians. They wanted their gravy train. They got it.
Right? They created this issue.
Yeah.
They helped to create this issue. They should be the first willing to take a bullet.
Yes. But they have private jets, and they are using the hell out of them right now. So that's some other news that we've had recently. Let's see. I have. Let's see. Yeah, even the national airline, because it's just really it's not. It's like many airlines is leasing jets. Apparently, its insurers won't cover its aircraft, and they actually requested that they fly their jets to Spain for storage. Which
Oh, goody.
yeah. I'm just saying, if you have a national airline, you should probably have a real national airline, not a fake one.
Right.
Let's see. So I mentioned earlier. So yeah, we talked about this earlier. We're moving the embassy from Kiev to Lvov, and actually let me show you guys where Lvov is, because it's, first of all, it's probably the most pro-Western city in Ukraine, and second of all, it's quite close to Poland.
Which means they could just bop across the border if things did go hot.
Yeah, if things go south, they can move quite quickly. Whereas, so yeah, this is Lvov. So this is Kiev, and this is Lvov. So it is a 30-mile drive to Poland. Probably less than that, 25 miles. Whereas, I mean, just looking at this, the Russians have troops all along the northern border here. They could potentially cut off Kiev before any. And actually, here's the other thing to think about is, unlike a lot of people we've been dealing with recently, such as, say, the Taliban, or the Russians have extremely advanced air defense systems. So really, as soon as they start pushing across the border, the airspace in and around Kiev is going to get shut down to any kind of heavy aircraft, because the Russians have things like the S-300.
Well, it's going to get shut down to not just heavy aircraft. It's probably going to be shut down to just about anything flying in or out of there.
Yeah, I mean, you would need some like helicopters flying low, right, to get under the radar. The Russians have heavy missile systems like the S-300, which these things can. What is the range on this thing? Yeah, these things can reach out and touch you up to a good 100 miles away, I would say. And so essentially, as soon as the balloon goes up, and as soon as the Russians advance any distance into Ukraine, the airspace over Kiev is going to shut down. Which means if you're going to get out of Kiev, you're going to have to drive. Or actually, if you were a little smarter about that, you might want to take a boat down the Dnieper and try to get out further south. But you're going to have to drive, and well, who else is going to be on the road if you're trying to drive out of Kiev during a war? Well, you're going to be sharing that. It's going to look like, you're going to be sharing the road with half the population of Kiev.
Yeah, you're gonna be slowed to a crawl. You can walk faster.
Yeah, it's going to be just complete gridlock, and possibly the Russians are smart about this. Any kind of bridge, overpass, infrastructure around Kiev, it's all going to get blown up. Like airstrikes, boom, bridges drop, roads get cratered. Yeah, potentially mines get laid on roads, stuff like that. So there could very easily be, as far as if you want to, you as a civilian want to get out of Kiev, it could become very. You could basically be reduced to getting out on foot very quickly, or probably the more intelligent thing would be to get out by boat. But
get out by boat, or if you're on a farm or something, you're going to use whatever farm animals you have as transportation.
Yeah. ride your horse. But I mean, this is the State Department we're talking about here. They expect the executive treatment. So,
Of course, always.
That they want their motorcade, or they want to lease their helicopter, and also, if they're trying to get in by helicopter, well, again, this is an active war zone. There's going to be a lot of anti-aircraft systems in and around Kiev, manned by Ukrainians with itchy trigger fingers, and probably a lot of Russian aircraft flying around there, manned by Russians who want to kill anything that's flying that doesn't have a red star painted on it.
And do you really want to try to fly through that?
Yeah, it's going to become very dangerous very quickly. And actually, there are certain ways, there are certain things the Russians could do to like shut down river traffic. I don't think they're going to do them, but I mean, potentially they could get a bomber over if they shut down enough air defenses. They could like get a bomber over this area here and start like dropping naval mines into the river. That would, because they make airdrop naval mines. I'm not sure if the Russians have any. We certainly have some.
I don't know what they have as far as that kind of thing. Although it is entirely possible that they would have them.
Yeah. So
they're not stuck in the Cold War, despite how many people want to claim they are.
Yeah. And yeah, also, I mean, just Kiev is very quickly going to come under some kind of artillery fire. Not direct artillery, but it's going to come under long-range missile fire almost immediately, and probably under rocket fire within 24 to 48 hours. So it's Kiev is going to get hot, whereas Lvov, you've got options, and the Russians probably are not very interested in attacking this part of the country immediately. They have much more pressing concerns to deal with everywhere else. So, the embassy is going to be much safer there.
Yeah. Well, and
sorry.
the attack of the text message.
Yeah, well, that was somebody's giving me a phone call. Just tell them to text me later. Also, while we're at this here, so we're at our halfway point in the stream. I'm trying to keep us to about an hour. While I text my dad back, it's we could just contemplate this excellent tweet.
That's amazing, is what that is. I saw that earlier. Molly, what are you doing? Besides knocking things over.
Yeah, so yeah, good old
Good old military engineering.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give them like +10 for ingenuity and like -1,000 for, as a safety officer, making like a blood vessel in my eye burst just looking at this.
I mean, you could get away with that if the rock is flat enough, which it does look like it might be, but I think they need to center the jack better.
That's there's just nothing about this is safe. Okay, at least he isn't like underneath the vehicle with that shit show.
Oh man, if he was underneath there, that would be a lot worse than it is if he was under there. Yeah. Looks like he's just changing the tire, though. Looks like that tire was just shot.
Yeah, like that was probably like the jack they had or something. He's just trying to get it up high enough to change that tire.
That's what it looks like to me, yeah.
That is still scary.
I mean, that's a giant freaking truck.
Yeah. Well, that's a Humvee, I think.
Oh, is it? Is it a Humvee?
Yeah, I think it's a Humvee. At least it looks like a Humvee.
It might be. I thought it was bigger than a Humvee, but
actually, it might be a Latvi.
Yeah, it could be that. Because we're all trying to figure out what the vehicle is.
Might be one of these. because these just came out like last year. And that
actually looks like it.
yeah, because that sort of rear area there, that looks like sort of this.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is. It seems bigger than a Humvee.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the same angle here, really. That actually does look very similar. Kind of.
Regardless, it's a bad idea to stick a rock on top of your jack.
Yes.
Like I said, it can work if the rock is flat enough, although it still doesn't look to me like he has it centered well enough to be properly balanced.
Yeah, it's still just wildly
That's
unsafe.
very precarious.
Yeah, tell me about it. Also, you recall what I was saying about how our indicator of an imminent attack would be those Russian assembly areas empty out? Well, it's happening.
Yep, they're moving stuff.
Yeah, they are probably. I mean, I know I said in that stream they'd be moving to an attack position. What they're probably moving to is a more like a tactical assembly area, some intermediate staging area where they would then move to an actual attack position.
Yeah.
So I think these are they basically put their stuff into like a equipment yard. Now they're actually moving to an assembly area.
If they moved to full attack position now, they'd run the risk of getting caught in the rain.
Yeah, well, they probably also you don't want to just hang out there for a week because then you're going to get discovered, right? You're
going to get discovered, and then anyone with half a brain to function would figure out, hey, this is a target-rich environment, and they wouldn't just let you sit there.
Yeah, they're not just gonna. Also, it's just the biggest indicator in the world that something is coming down is when you see the Russians move like up to the line of departure, because that's probably right at the border. But yeah, so that they're manning their equipment, they're moving it out to stage it somewhere to go into action. So once they get into those tactical assembly areas, I mean, you only really pause in the attack position. You're not going to hang out there for a long period of time. So they could really attack on, a matter of hours notice. And there's the usual slate of videos coming out about the Russians just moving all the stuff in the world around in Western Russia and Belarus. Helicopters, missiles, artillery, tanks. They've got everything. Let's see. So we've talked about that. So let's... So while we're at this, let's also talk about what I would call the dog that isn't barking, which is page 142, so I can get back to it. Which is, so what have the Ukrainians been doing about this? Because so far what I've seen is the Ukrainians have not been doing a hell of a lot. They've been talking about mobilizing some troops. But if they're, and what I also don't know is if there's a lot of war drums beating in the West, but what I also don't know is if the Ukrainians are also getting told simultaneously to not take action that could be construed as being provocative, which might be the cause of this. But for whatever reason, I have not seen I haven't seen a whole lot of indications that the Ukrainians are even really mobilizing a lot of their troops, like particularly getting reserves into action. There's been some news stories saying they're calling people up, but it seems to kind of be like propaganda.
Spotty and yeah.
I don't think the Ukrainians have operational security that's that good, so I think it's just not happening. Also, the big thing that if the Russians were going to invade imminently, and that the Ukrainians should be doing, and that I have seen no indication of them doing, is they have not been. And the apparent Ukrainian military types have been making noise, saying, "Oh well, we're going to turn this into a battle of attrition with the Russians, and we're going to fight them out, and we're going to bog them down." Well, okay, great, but in order to do this, you guys have to dig in, and
Yeah. And
I've
they're
seen
not really. They don't really seem to be doing that at all.
Yeah, there would be videos on social media of bulldozers digging giant anti-tank ditches across all of northern Ukraine, and this is just to give you an idea of what an anti-tank ditch looks like, something that will stop a T-72. What do we have here? Particularly obstacles that will stop tracked vehicles are just gigantic. What do we have here? This is a copy of FM 5-102 counter mobility.
Hi, Molly.
This is the 1980s version, which still has good stuff in it, like using atomic demolition munitions.
Because we had those.
We did. The craziest thing that has ever been, the second craziest thing that's ever been deployed in the American arsenal. The craziest thing was the Davy Crockett.
I'd forgotten about that.
God. Actually, let me go on a little bit of a tangent here. This is a this is a special atomic demolition munition, and here's a carry bag for it. It's what, like a 2-man lift. Weapon was 12 inches by 8 inches and weighed 58 pounds. So yeah, it's a good 2-man lift. Let's pick that up. Heavy backpack. Yield was estimated to be 10 to 1,000 tons of TNT. God. So yeah, this is what we were doing during the Cold War. But back on topic. So just to give you an idea of what the sort of dimensions you need to construct for an anti-tank ditch. This needs to be at least 1.5 meters deep and at least 3.3 meters wide. So this is a 5 foot deep, 10 foot wide trench, which is big. And that's a minimum, right? That's and actually the thing about the minimum is okay, tank drives up to it, and I've seen this happen with Bradleys. Bradley drives up to an anti-tank ditch, and the infantry guys in the back get out and get their e-tools out, and they dig a ramp down, then dig a ramp up the other side, and the Bradley drives across it. So if you want to construct an obstacle which will hold up the Russians for any length of time, you need probably multiple layers of these things. You need
multiple layers. Probably they'd probably need to be really, really deep as well.
Yeah, and more than
something that it would take them a lot of time to dig out of.
Yeah, and you don't just need to dig a ditch. You need to put concertina wire over it. That's a broad obstacle. Let me go find a picture of sea wire here. Anyways, you would need to dig a ditch, put triple strand sea wire across it. Oh yeah, I see a farm. I see it. No, yeah, you have a perfectly good point. Yes, we see it. Yeah, the Russian. That's So we do have Favre here in the chat, and he's saying the Russians could potentially be patrolling the waterways with amphibs. Which, if they get that close, yeah, they could potentially get boats into the Dnieper, or get. The Russians have a lot of amphibious vehicles. If they get south of Kiev, they could potentially just have boats and amphibious, armored vehicles hanging out in the Dnieper, preventing people from getting out of Kiev that way.
Well, there is also the problem for Ukraine that Russia could just ship things over from that sea and just land stuff.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't even necessarily have to fight through to get south of Kiev.
No, they could very easily land around Odessa. It wouldn't be the easiest thing in the world to do, but amphibious operations are never easy, so it's more than possible. And they have a lot of amphibs. They actually apparently like six Russian LSTs came out of port in Sevastopol like today. So I mean, yeah, they could quite easily sort of seize this area down here. Yeah, but I mean, if the Ukrainians are trying to seriously slow down a Russian advance, they need to start constructing a lot of obstacles. And this is ditches. This is triple strand concertina wire. This is minefields, and they would need to lay a lot of mines. And all of this takes time, and it takes a lot of time. And let me see out here. Yeah, I mean, just to here we have some estimates here. So yeah, just to construct a triple strand of concertina wire. First of all, this takes a lot of like material. This is like a dump truck full of stuff. Well, let's see. I mean, just to construct 300 meters of triple strand C wire, you need 160 pickets, 56 coils of C wire, which is a huge amount of C wire. This is 2 tons of material, and it's going to take 40 guys working for an hour to build this thing. And that's just for 300 meters. Well, a short glance at the map here is the Russo-Ukrainian border is a little bit longer than 300 meters. It's hundreds of miles long. So this would be a considerable effort, and moreover, it would require like a considerable amount of time and materials to put together. This isn't something that you do overnight. This is something which would take weeks to build. And I haven't seen any indication the Ukrainians are doing this.
Yeah, they haven't even started.
Yeah. I mean, I know they have obstacles like around the Donbass, but I haven't seen them trying to expand that. And moreover, so this is just the ditch, right? This is just the obstacle. If you're going to be fighting somebody, you also need to. Here we go. So this is it's like if you want to dig an anti-tank ditch. Well, if you have a, let's see. I mean, if you what are we looking for? So I mean, if you want to dig a with dozers, you want to dig and these are fairly large bulldozers. 500 meters of anti-tank ditch. That's a 6-hour job for 2 bulldozers. It's a significant undertaking. And it's a finite number of bulldozers in Ukraine, right?
Yeah, well, and with as open as most of the Ukrainian terrain is, they'd have a lot of ditch to dig.
Oh, absolutely. They would need to ditch the hell out of the countryside. And I mean, if they were doing this, you would see videos all over social media of them just digging trenches from here to Sunday.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen any indication of that.
Well, and if they were doing that, they would have had to start the minute this nonsense started going.
Yeah, I mean, they should have started this stuff last month. And even if they were starting it last month, they would still have maybe an okay obstacle system. They wouldn't have a good one. And part of that is, well, okay, you need to, first of all, dig the obstacles to stop the enemy, but you also need to dig protective stuff for your own forces. And so you need to dig foxholes. You need to dig fighting positions for tanks. And I mean, just to give you an example here, and I apologize for anybody watching the stream. This is a bad scan of this this pub, but I mean, to dig a to dig a deliberate fighting position for an M1 Abrams, that's an hour and a half of blade time with a Caterpillar D7. That's to dig one deliberate fighting position for one tank. Well, yeah. Ukrainians use Russian doctrine, 10 tanks per company. So that's 15 hours with a dozer to dig one set of positions for one company. And that's, and if you're going to like seriously defend, if you're going to seriously defend, you're not just digging one set of positions, because the enemy is the enemy is going to possibly attack you from multiple different directions. So,
well, and if they know that you're digging these things, they're not going to come straight at you either.
Yeah. And like you're going to want to dig the positions you fight from, and then you're going to want to dig a separate set of positions to like hide in somewhere else. And then when you have your lookout saying, okay, the Russians are coming, then you drive your company up there, and then they get into the fighting positions. But you don't just hang out in your fighting positions. It's a sort of a little bit of tactical dog. It's just a little bit of a how you fight. You figure out where you're going to fight from, then you figure out where you're going to hide in, and then you figure out where you get from your hide site to your fighting position, and how you get your lookout spaced out so you can make sure you have enough time to do that. Which, I mean, is telling me. And again, this is just, so if you want to dig, 2 sets of positions for a company, well, that's going to take 30 hours of blade time with a dozer. And that's just for one tank company. Well, we were looking at, the Ukrainians, I think I worked out, they have something like, equivalent combat power, 50 BTGs or something. So this is, let's do some math. Let's do some mathematics here. Let's say we have 50 BTGs. We want to dig everything in, and so that is what do we have? Probably just digging the combat vehicles in. Probably 40. I have to say 45 vehicles per BTG. So 45 times 2 times 1.5. So that is 135 hours of blade time to dig one set of positions from one BTG. I'll multiply that by 50. It's about 6,750 hours of blade time to dig the Ukrainian army in. And that's just combat vehicles. That's just one set of positions for one defense. Yeah, so Far says, Far's got a comment here. So problem seems that nobody seems to be doing anything. Now, of course, it might not be completely true, but it doesn't look like basic defensive measures are happening. Yeah, Far's completely correct. Now, what this is telling me is that when you're in the military, you're trying to, at least when the U.S. military, when you get ordered to defend something, you don't just get told, hey, just go here and protect something. You get an order saying, be prepared to defend at this time. It's the same as attack. Like, you get told to attack something, attack at this time. Well, defense is the same way. Defend at, such and such hour, and that's when you're ready to conduct the defense. And what we're seeing here is, I don't think the Ukrainians I don't think the Ukrainian army has been given a defend order. They certainly aren't acting like it. And Katala, you had a good comment there in the chat. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so considering what the Ukrainian president has been doing thus far, it's honestly looking more likely that he will surrender without a fight, which will essentially turn Ukraine, if it doesn't just become part of Russia wholesale, it will become basically a puppet state underneath Russian control.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And I mean, at this point, I'd almost say that would be his, given the unwillingness of the, the Western allies, I'd say, to give him, of NATO, to give him any significant amount of support. I wouldn't blame him if he did that.
I would not either, really, because it would be a lot less costly and a lot less dangerous to both him and anyone living in the Ukraine to do that.
Yeah, and his country isn't going to get blown up, and I mean, the Russians
well,
are
his country doesn't get blown up, and in that situation also, he doesn't end up ruining a lot of farmland, a lot of sustainable living land, basically trying to keep the Russians out.
Yeah. And, I mean, the Ukraine is a reasonably modern Eastern European country. Russia is a reasonably modern Eastern European country. I'm not sure, conditions would really change that much under Russian ownership.
Honestly, it might not, and who knows? I don't think it would, but there's also always the possibility it would be slightly better, just considering how corrupt the current Ukrainian government is.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Russians were also very corrupt themselves, but I'm really not sure there's that much of a difference between them as far as
doesn't seem to be a lot of difference.
Yeah. We have a very interesting comment from Quarter Ghost. It says he was a private military contractor sent to Ukraine a year ago. He says they are in no way ready for this. They're still using the militia. It says now the Ukrainian National Guard to do all this stuff, and it's very half-assed, which I'm not. Got to say I'm not that surprised about.
Yeah.
And the three groups that were basically forming the front around Donetsk were as ragtag as can be. Militiamen, irregulars, National Guard, sort of Ukrainian National Guardsmen, not second line troops.
He says he's willing to put his hand in a fire that it didn't change that much.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's I mean the level of reform and the level of support the Ukrainians would need to stand off the Russians is significantly more than what they've got. What the Ukrainians have gotten out of the West has been almost entirely symbolic. Some invitations to training exercises with NATO, some shoulder-fired weapons, and that's about it.
Yeah. At this point, the only logical decision they could make would be to surrender.
Well, I wouldn't blame them if they did at this point. Catala was very nice to send me a collection of concertina wire pictures. So yeah, like military sea wire looks something like this. Yeah, this is a coilless sea wire. Sea wire is evil stuff. It will tangle you up and
it will eat you alive while it's doing it.
Yeah, it's bad. Nothing about it's good. And if you want to make an actual military obstacle that will stop stuff, you take a. Let me see if I can find a picture of this stuff.
There should be one there. There is one of military galvanized concertina wire just above the one you've got on stream right now.
Okay.
Right in the middle.
I found one here. Sorry. Yeah, here we go. This is triple strand. This is the good stuff. So if you wanted to construct a serious obstacle, you would have an anti-tank ditch with
that probably on with both sides.
Yeah, probably with this built in the bottom of it, and then another layer of this built behind it, and then mines laid in the bottom of it. And that and if you can cover that obstacle with fire, if you have anti-tank missiles set up on the other side of it to start shooting at the enemy as they come up to it, that might hold off that could potentially stop an attack, or it might delay the enemy by an hour or so, right? Because there are some.
Well, if you don't want, because I've seen pictures of what happens if you try to drive a tank over this, that stuff gets tangled in the tracks really, really easy.
Yeah, it'll.
If you don't want to screw up your vehicle, you get out and you cut it.
Yeah, so
You have to.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to get through this stuff. You can breach it by hand. Just get out and cut it and pull it aside. Although if there's mines in the bottom of it, that makes it dicey.
That makes it interesting.
I mean, probably what the Russians would be using would be. They have a version of this. This is a. There we go. This is the vehicle that carries it, but it has a. This is a mine clearing line charge, so it's basically it's like a fire hose full of C4, and you just with a rocket attached to the end of it, and you drive an engineering vehicle up to the obstacle, and you fire this thing, and it tows this fire hose full of C4 across the obstacle, and then you just detonate it, and that will cut any C wire there, and then any mines that are around there, it'll blow them up. And it'll either blow them up or push them off to the side, and then you basically get your mine plows in, or get your mine plows in, and just doze that area, so that'll hopefully pull any mines aside.
Pull them aside, or I know there are some vehicles that some militaries use that are specifically designed to scoop them up and move them physically.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird and wacky stuff that just combat engineers will just use to clear this stuff. And it takes a while, right? So while they're trying to do this stuff, you can shoot anti-tank missiles at them, fire artillery at them. It's like artillery, there's artillery shells and rockets that will scatter mines behind them. So something really mean you can do to somebody, really kind of devious, is while they breach the obstacle, they're putting forces through it, and then you use your artillery to lay more mines back over the breach, and then they have to breach it again. That can really screw somebody up. So we have some more great comments from Quarter Ghost. Thank you for coming on the stream, Quarter. Thank you for commenting, by the way, Quarter Ghost. So he said the trenches that they had in eastern Ukraine were mostly straight, and the fob that was scattered through them, it was roughed above ground level. The artillery they had was crude mortars, which they were aimed by trial and error while looking at the impact, while surveilling the impact with basically civilian drones. So this is really not pretty crude methods with some off-the-shelf drone technology. Also, the thing he says about trenches. So think about any kind of military fortification in the modern days. You want to make it so you can't see it. So if you have a roof over it that's above ground level, well, the enemy can see that from a long way off, and they can adjust artillery onto it. Also, the thing about a trench being straight. So if you're in the, let me go find a picture of a trench system. And the thing is that if you are digging here we go. This is another World War I trench here. You notice how these all zigzag like hell? Right, they're all just completely squiggly. The reason for that is, bullets travel in straight lines, and shrapnel travels in straight lines. So if you're in a trench and it's straight, and one bad guy with a machine gun jumps into one side of the trench, you can just sit there and just hose the whole trench. You just hose that whole length of trench. Well, if it's straight, if it's zigzagged, then you can only see maybe 10 yards down it, right? So that makes it much more difficult to clear troops out of it, because then you have to go around all the corners, and it's a much more involved process. Yeah, and honestly, Quarter Ghost, that's something that just digging a straight trench, that's something that somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience would do. Somebody who is operating on a more amateurish level, they would just dig a straight trench and think, well, okay, we've entrenched. Well, no, you haven't. You've made a trench, yes, but it's also a death trap.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that's why trench warfare went out after World War I.
Yeah, like this, all this stuff here. This was very, very difficult to get through. And also, this is all dug pretty much by hand. And you can imagine the amount of manpower that went into this. So, yeah. So we've take a look at our stream. Yeah. So we're currently at about an hour. Oh, yeah. Cortigo says that they used to call them target holes. Yeah, I don't blame him for not feeling good hanging out there, because that's not a. I mean,
that's not a position I would want to be in. That's for sure.
At a certain point, you're just drawing fire on yourself, right? I mean, particularly these days where everybody and their mother has a drone, and it's really easy to put up something small and cheap and look down at people.
And pinpoint exactly where they are, no less.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. This is something 10 years ago only the U.S. could do. Well, guess what? These days any average Boy Scout troop could do it. So, that being said, we've hit an hour here. Thanks everyone for coming on. Katala, would you like to show your channel? I can pull you up here on the screen.
Yeah, so I run a gaming channel. I play exclusively Guild Wars at the moment, although I'm considering adding different games to my roster, maybe a few single players, stuff like that. So if you're interested in watching the gang make mistakes in a video game, you can always check me out. Leave a like, leave a comment, give me a subscription, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and we play a lot of Guild Wars there. And actually, End of Dragons is coming out, 9 days from now? It's coming out on the 22nd.
It's coming out on the 22nd, so that is about 8 days.
So yeah,
today's the 14th.
Should we start a pod on whether the Russians invade first, or whether the Russians invade before or after End of Dragons?
That would be an interesting poll.
God, right. And let me also bring up my one of my other panel members here, Farv. He's been in the chat today, but he was not able to come on and comment. Or Vivian Guard, this is his channel. He does End of Dragon stuff. He also does some other. He does Guild Wars stuff, and he also does some talk stuff about a lot of it, sort of video games, cultural issues. He did a stream last week about the NFT disaster, which just NFTs. It's something I'm still not that smart on that stuff.
I'm not either.
Yes, I mean, I guess more power to artists making money. I'm always up for that.
Near as I can come to the thing on NFTs is it was somebody trying to figure out a way to to gain an income that the government couldn't stick their dirty mitts into.
Yeah, well, it's one of those like blockchain applications, I guess.
Well, it's basically based on cryptocurrency. It's based around Bitcoin and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm not sure the whole NFT thing is necessarily going to be here to stay, but blockchain technology is an interesting episode. Blockchain technology is definitely here to stay.
Yeah.
And let me give me a moment here to show myself. So I am an author. This is my book, The Maiden's War. It's very well reviewed, as you can see. It's got 4.5 stars, and actually 4 3/5 stars. So on Amazon, people really like it. And it's very well reviewed, sort of a World War I style fantasy war novel. And actually, I'll on this channel be able to showcase some in the very near future. Be able to showcase some artwork that I'm having done for the sequel, Valkyrie Knight, which is I'm trying to get Valkyrie Knight out by Christmas. I have a lot of other stuff going on between now and then, so I'm hoping I can hit that target. But it is coming out in the very near future. and I will be able to start showcasing art for Valkyrie Night quite soon. And it's going to be good. Looking forward to showing it to everyone. And Valkyrie Night is really sort of shaping up very nicely. I'm really looking forward to getting it published. And before Farv chimes in, he will also Farv is also an author, and he's also publishing a book here in the near future. So we'll probably be doing some along with military topics. We'll be doing some sort of author promo stuff here on this channel, probably on my channel and on his, and maybe on Katala's if she wants to do something that's not Guild Wars here in the very near future. So, yeah, with that that being said, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you everyone for watching. Just a note, like we said, sort of looking at the weather, I wouldn't be surprised if this takes another week or so to get moving in a big way. I have been, if something does kick off there, I'm going to stream more frequently. As it stands, I'll probably be keeping up a weekly schedule in peacetime, and I'll try to, if a war kicks off, I'll probably go to a daily or every couple of days stream schedule. For as long as things are happening that are newsworthy. So that being said, Katala, you want to have any final thoughts?
Nope, I think I've covered everything I had.
Awesome. Well, in that case, thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you all later. This is the Armchair Warlord, out.
Later, y'all.
Quarter Ghost, yeah, just if you want to message me, yeah, actually, if you want to message me, if you look at the about section of my channel, I do have my email listed there, so just drop me an email there. Also, if you yeah, just shoot me an email if you want to get a hold of me. And thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you all later. This is where Katala would normally say "not everyone."
I did say that a little bit ago.
Okay.
Later, guys.
Yeah, Quarter Ghost. I'll hit you up. I'll hit you up on Discord. Later, guys.